Hey, what's going on, Ringsiders? This is your host, Boxing's Objective Observer, and welcome back to Ringside Stories. Or if you're new, we make content regarding boxing through mini documentaries, backstories, takeaways, and much more. So if you enjoy that type of content, feel free to subscribe, thumbs up, and hit that notification bell for the latest here on Ringside Stories. Thanks so much for your support in advance, and welcome to the channel. So on May 7th, Cinco de Mayo weekend 2022, Saul Canelo Alvarez is going to take on his next challenge, WBA light heavyweight champion of the world, Dmitry Bivol.
Yes, me and my team wanted this fight, have won this fight, and I'm glad this fight will be
really good challenge, and now I have a very good fighter in front, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this fight.
An exciting fight with so much to unpack, but here are 5 things to keep in mind for Bivol versus Canelo. Number 1, Canelo is chasing legacy. Now, as I stated here on Ringside Stories many times, I'm not a fan of no fighter in particular. However, I do acknowledge greatness, and I appreciate when fights like Bivol versus Canelo are made, because these are the type of fights that seasoned boxing fans can appreciate whilst having mainstream appeal. Saul Canelo Alvarez could have chosen Junior Makabu, for example, which would have been a more legacy-defining, yet easier fight, at least in my opinion. Still, Canelo has chosen to test his greatness against, in my opinion, his most difficult option, not the most dangerous. I believe that would be Artur beterbiev. However, tactically, style-wise, based on experience and overall skill set, Dmitry Bivol is the most difficult in my opinion, especially considering the options with the other champions at light heavyweight, Artur beterbiev unifying with Joe Smith Jr. By the way, beterbiev and Smith Jr. set an example towards guys like Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andrade, who at this point don't have much to offer to Saul Canelo Alvarez at 168 as Dmitry Bivol does at 175. Onliners may say Canelo is ducking fighters such as David Benavidez at 168, who I think is a talented young fighter, yet has proven both inside and outside the ring by his inconsistencies, which, if Benavidez had been more consistent, he might not have lost his WBC world title twice, which may have granted Canelo versus Benavidez as part of Canelo's undisputed run at super middleweight. Besides, Saul Canelo Alvarez's body of work, at least in the last decade, is solidified. Sure, there were some questionable decisions, the judges who scored Mayweather Canelo a draw, for example, or a fight against an overmatched Amir Khan. On the flip side, however, Saul Canelo Alvarez did put in the work, as he fought an in his prime Austin Trout, the then undefeated WBA world champion at 154, talented Cuban Erislandy Lara, whose career can be described as open-ended so far, since most top fighters at both 154 and 160 have refused to give Lara a fight even to this day. Hall of Famer Miguel Cotto and both Gennady Golovkin fights. No matter whether you agree on the timing or the outcome of those fights, or whether you rate those performances, Saul Canelo Alvarez still fought all these top guys, something most 160 and 168 pounders in this era simply have not done. And it's clear Canelo is aiming for legacy, taking on a legitimate champion in a weight class Canelo is fairly new. Number 2, second fight at light heavyweight. Saul Canelo Alvarez is a relatively big guy. I mean, after becoming the first ever undisputed super middleweight world champion, Team Canelo was entering talks for a fight 2 weight classes north from super middle. Still, on May 7th, God willing, the Mexican will make his second appearance in the light heavyweight division. First time around was 2019, after successfully unifying against then IBF middleweight world champion Danny Jacobs, when Saul Canelo Alvarez moved up 2 divisions to fight WBO world champion Sergey Kovalev at the 175-pound weight class. The Crusher at that time already lost 3 fights, 2 against Ward, was stopped twice, and coming into the fight with Canelo looked a bit shot against young up-and-comer Anthony Yarde, and surely had seen better days. However, even at 36, Sergey Kovalev gave Canelo problems, which I believe would have been more apparent had this been Sergey Kovalev from a few years prior. Up until the stoppage in the 11th, Kovalev-Canelo was fairly competitive, competitive, as two judges had Canelo up 2 rounds. One judge had Canelo Kovalev a draw at the time of the stoppage. In a career of close to 2 decades with 60 official professional fights under his belt, Saul Canelo Alvarez has a big bag of experience. However, on fight night, he will be the shorter fighter and he will face an equally experienced world-class fighter whose style has given Canelo issues throughout the Mexican's career. Number 3. Styles make fights. If there's one hole in Canelo's game, it's his foot speed. Against Floyd Mayweather Jr., Canelo looked bang average. Now sure, this was a relatively young and unexperienced Canelo who has progressed a ton since that Mayweather fight. However, the way Money May was able to outbox and counter Canelo all night long was evidence Canelo's struggles against good boxers who have great upper body movement and or better legs than Canelo, which was glaring even in Canelo's recent fight against Sweet Hands Caleb Plant, who failed to put a dent into Canelo's armor offensively. However, the then undefeated IBF super middleweight world champion was able to make things difficult for Canelo by utilizing his good footwork, a sound defense, which include upper body movement. Unlike Caleb Plant, Dmitry Bivol does have power. At the core, Bivol is a fighter who relies on a great ring IQ, movement, defense, and an array of formidable boxing skill. Dmitry Bivol went up against hard-hitting Joe Smith Jr., of whom the Russian took his best punch and still didn't go down. He was able to outthink, outjab, and outmaneuver his clearly stronger and bigger opponent. Bivol is accurate, has a piston-like jab, sublime understanding of distance, and against Saul Canelo Alvarez has a height and reach advantage, which will all play into Dmitry Bivol's advantage should the fight be fought from distance. Just like in recent fights at super middleweight, Canelo has to impose his will implementing his pressure style of fighting. However, Canelo is going up against a natural light heavyweight, an experienced undefeated world champion in his prime, whose attributes could give the Mexican the most issues stylistically since his first and only loss, that being against Floyd Mayweather Jr., because the skill set Dmitry Bivol possesses historically have stacked up against Canelo, who again doesn't have many flaws. However, Canelo is a versatile fighter who can switch styles, and given his vast experience and overall ring IQ, will bring a lot of attributes of his own that will force the WBA light heavyweight champion to answer some much needed questions. And so, how will Team Canelo approach this intriguing yet possibly difficult challenge? Number 4. The Intrigue. Well, the Korean Russian is in his prime, an undefeated WBA champion of the world, and although not the deepest resume, Dmitry Bivol did beat some quality operators. Sullivan Barrera, who was past his best yet tough and experienced, former WBC and lineal light heavyweight champion of the world Sean Pascal, and hard-hitting Joe Smith Jr., the current WBO world champion at 175, who Dmitry Bivol outclassed for most part of their fight and came close to stopping the New York native in the 12th had the fight lasted a bit longer. As we've seen, Dmitry Bivol has the skills, the attributes, and the intangibles that historically have troubled Saul Canelo Alvarez. The obvious question though, just how good is Dmitry Bivol? We know he's a career light heavyweight, we've seen Bivol take a punch from a heavy hitter, yet we haven't seen him deal with body attacks, especially not from an elite level fighter like Saul Canelo Alvarez. If the fight goes long and into deep waters, how will Dmitry Bivol deal with that? On paper, Canelo is the best opponent Bivol's ever faced in his career as a pro so far. As for the 168-pound undisputed champion of the world, how will Canelo make up for his disadvantages in foot speed and height? Can Canelo box with the boxer-puncher? Can Canelo successfully get inside Dmitry Bivol's defense, who so far has proven to be a defensively sublime fighter? Although Canelo has proven so far in his career to take a punch excellently, how well will the Mexican be able to take a shot from a natural light heavyweight who might not have the highest KO ratio, yet can crack and set up his offense in craftier fashion than many of Canelo's previous opponents, at least recently? Number 5. 50-50 fight. Both Canelo and Bivol have a well of experience. Both Canelo and Bivol possess attributes that can trouble each other. Two reigning world champions in their prime, which apart from some physicality, has little to separate the two. Canelo is the hottest commodity, the proverbial cash cow in the US, and maybe in all of boxing, at least at the making of this video. Canelo is in his prime, has all the momentum in the world, coming off a successful run at super middleweight, which saw boxing crown his first undisputed world champion in a record time of just 11 months. Although Canelo beat all undefeated reigning world champions on his way to win all of the marble at 168, without being too disrespectful, Dmitry Bivol is definitely actually a step up from Callum Smith, who was a big super middleweight and recently stepped up to light heavyweight himself. Compared to Billy Joe Saunders, Dmitry Bivol does not rely on antics outside of the ring, as Bivol is in better shape pretty much all year around. And then you have Sweet Hands, aka Caleb Plant, who, like Billy Joe Saunders, did his very best to get under Canelo's skin. During the fight, he was hyper defensive, showing great movement, yet clearly lacked the power to trouble Canelo at any point in the fight, only to get stopped in the 11th. In comparison, Dmitry Bivol is a more experienced, naturally bigger, harder hitting version of Caleb Plant, who is a career light heavyweight and has reigned supreme in a division Canelo will visit for just his second time. That said, Dmitry Bivol will face his first real test against his first elite pound-for-pound level opponent. Bivol has been accused for looking a tad uninspired in some of his recent fights. However, if there was a fight Bivol should be motivated for, it'd be this fight against Saul Canelo Alvarez. And if the current WBA world champion at light heavyweight shows the hunger on top of his existing skill set, Canelo will most likely face his toughest challenge since his doubleheader against Gennady Golovkin. In a competitive division with two other world champions unifying the three other belts, boxing fans may welcome an undisputed world champion in the light heavyweight division soon. Will Canelo Alvarez continue to keep writing history, or will the silent Russian keep his O intact by beating the most active champion in recent memory and clear-cut fighter of the year 2021? Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Dmitry Bivol, May 7, 2022 seems to have all the ingredients for a great fight, and boxing fans could be in for a treat for multiple reasons. These are just my observations. What are yours? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this kind of content and you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, and hit that notification bell, as it helps the channel out a lot, i.e. inspire us to make more quality content for y'all. As always, thank you so much for your support and welcome to Ringside Stories. Now, if you've done that already, you're amazing. We already know that you are the true undisputed world champion. Till next time, Ringsiders, this is your host, Boxing's Objective Observer with Ringside Stories. Thanks for watching and have a legendary day.